Okay, so every single day, the world generates, what is it? An astounding 2.5 quintillion bytes of data.
Yeah, it's a number that's almost, well, hard to even grasp, isn't it?
Totally. But here's the really wild part. The sources tell us that most of that data, the vast majority, it isn't the neat, organized stuff.
Right. Not your tidy spreadsheets or databases.
No, it's messy. It's emails, photos, videos, social media posts, call recordings, the chaotic reality of digital life.
And that's the world of unstructured data, stuff that just doesn't fit neatly into those predefined rows and columns we're used to.
And the scale is, well, you said it, immense. Estimates are suggesting 80 to 90% of all enterprise data is this unstructured stuff.
80 to 90%. Yeah, it's everywhere. It is the
What?
majority.
So it's not some side category. It's basically most of the digital information out there. But for a long time, organizations have really struggled with it, haven't they?
They really have. It's been kind of trapped, in these formats that traditional systems just couldn't handle.
Right, like digital clutter, or I
Oh.
think one source called it a data graveyard.
Exactly. That captures it perfectly. Companies sort of knew there was potential value hidden in their customer thoughts, market shifts, operational glitches,
Mm-hmm.
but actually accessing it, making sense of it at scale,
Mm-hmm.
that felt, well, pretty overwhelming for a long time.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive then. Let's pull back the curtain on this hidden world of unstructured data. We
Yeah.
want to explore exactly what it is, why it's been so tough to work with, and critically, how the breakthroughs, mostly driven by AI, it seems, are finally letting us unlock that massive value.
Yeah, how it's moving from being just a challenge to a real competitive advantage.
And most importantly, what this whole shift means for you listening right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, we've got the basic idea, but beyond just not fitting in a spreadsheet, what kind of data are we actually talking about here?
Well, think about data that doesn't have a fixed structure, a predefined model before you store it. Structured data, that fits neatly. Name, address, order amount, predefined fields.
Got it.
Unstructured data it's freeform. The content itself holds the meaning, not some rigid container it's forced into.
Like the text in a customer review, or maybe someone's being sarcastic. That feeling, the sarcasm, that's in the content, right? Not just a box you tick.
Precisely. That's a great example. Now, sources do mention semi-structured data, too, things like JSON or XML. They have some organization.
Cool.
But the real volume, the real challenge, lies in that completely raw, free-form stuff.
So give us some more examples from the sources. Where is this stuff actually hiding? Paint a picture for us.
Oh, it's everywhere digital content gets made. Emails, not just the subject line, but the actual body text, the attachments.
Oh.
Social media posts, text updates, sure, but also the images, the videos people upload, customer reviews, definitely. Recordings of customer service calls, sensor logs, streaming off IoT devices, security camera footage, clinical notes typed up by doctors, PDFs, contracts, reports, white papers, even just the text and images on web pages. The variety is just enormous, and the context around it is absolutely everything.
And the quantity. You mentioned 80, 90%, but the global numbers are just mind-bending.
They really are. Global volumes are pretty much doubling every couple of years. It's exponential.
Doubling. Okay.
Yeah. One source pointed out that back in 2022, companies globally generated something like 57.2 thousand exabytes of unstructured data just in that 1 year.
That number, it's almost meaningless. It's so big. 57,000 exabytes.
It's like a picture streaming video to maybe 2.5 billion screens nonstop for a whole year. That kind of scale.
Okay, that helps visualize it a bit.
And it's driven by everything we do online, our digital interactions, all those IoT devices, even AI generating more content now.
All right, so this massive, diverse, complex pile of data exists. Why should businesses actually care? You called it a gold mine earlier. What makes it so valuable?
Well, think about it logically. If, say, 80% of your information is unstructured and you ignore it, you're basically ignoring the vast majority of potential insights. Right?
Makes sense. You're flying blind on most of your data.
Totally. And sources are showing that companies who are using this data effectively, they're getting a serious competitive edge. We're talking outperforming their peers by like 20 to 30% in efficiency alone.
20 to 30%.
Yeah.
That's not trivial. That's huge.
It's a massive gap. And think about customer centricity. Something like 72% of customers today just expect personalized experiences.
Yeah, that number keeps going up.
Right. But how can you deliver that kind of personalization if you aren't analyzing what they're actually saying in reviews
Hmm.
or on support calls or, complaining about on social media.
Mm.
This unstructured data is absolutely essential for building that genuine 360-degree view of your customer.
It's where you find the real nuance, isn't it? The stuff they don't explicitly tell you in a survey, the unspoken needs, the frustrations.
Exactly that. Plus, it's vital for things like risk mitigation. Using AI tools like natural language processing to scan emails or documents for patterns that might indicate fraud, for instance.
Okay.
And it's a powerful driver for innovation. You might uncover emerging trends or unmet customer needs or completely new product ideas hidden in all those conversations or reports, things that your structured data just wouldn't show you.
So it fuels new thinking.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Ultimately, unlocking this data is the key to driving growth, becoming more agile, and building much deeper customer loyalty.
Okay, it sounds incredibly important, this gold mine. But if it's so critical, offering this edge, revealing customer truths, why isn't everyone already masters of it? It sounds like there must be some pretty big obstacles.
Oh, absolutely. The sources are very clear on this. Organizations face a pretty significant obstacle course when they try to tackle unstructured data. These aren't just small technical glitches. They're often fundamental strategic bottlenecks.
Okay, let's dive into those. The first obvious one has to be just the sheer amount of it and how fast it's piling up that data deluge idea.
Right. It's just
Ah.
overwhelming. Companies are storing petabytes, that's thousands of terabytes. But shockingly, sources suggest only about 58% of that stored data is ever used again after its initial creation.
Only 58%, so almost half is just sitting there.
Pretty much. And just storing all that unused data, it costs millions of dollars annually on average for large enterprises. Plus, like we said, it's growing way faster than structured data, making it incredibly hard just to keep up.
And then there's the variety and complexity you touched on earlier, images, audio, text, all sorts of different formats.
Exactly. And the content itself is often really complex. Think about trying to automatically analyze sarcasm, like you mentioned, in a review.
Yeah, that's tricky for humans sometimes.
Right. Or trying to get an AI to spot a tiny subtle defect in maybe a slightly blurry image from a factory floor. And then you layer on multilingual data for global companies needing translation before you can even start to analyze meaning across dozens of languages. It adds cost, adds complexity.
And traditional tools just choke on that kind of stuff.
Pretty much. Your standard database query languages, your old analytics tools,
No.
they just weren't built for that kind of diverse, often ambiguous content. Not efficiently, anyway.
And imagine pulling all this off requires some serious investment, right? It can't be cheap.
No, it's definitely not. Storing it properly, cleaning it up, analyzing it, it takes significant investment in specialized tools, often cloud solutions. And it's rarely just one magic platform. And companies often end up needing multiple tools, multiple technologies, all stitched together, which drives up both the initial and the ongoing costs.
Okay, what about data quality? That's always a headache, even with neat structured data. With this messy stuff, it must be a nightmare.
It's, let's say, exponentially harder. Structured data often has rules built in to enforce some level of quality. Unstructured data, it's inherently inconsistent, it's messy, it's often inaccurate, or just plain outdated.
Yeah.
And the sources of noise are everywhere. Think duplicate files, 10 versions of the same draft contract saved in different places. Or irrelevant content, like memes shared in a Slack channel that somehow ends up in a folder meant for customer feedback.
Huh. Yeah, I can see that happening.
It does. And poor data quality isn't just annoying, it's expensive. It costs organizations, on average, something like $15 million a year. And the crazy part, over half of companies don't even know the true cost because it's so hard to track with this kind of data.
15 million.
Wow. Teams end up wasting huge amounts of time just trying to clean and prep the data instead of actually analyzing it for those valuable insights.
And given the nature of emails, call recordings, documents, there have got to be huge risks around compliance and security, right?
Yeah.
Especially with sensitive information.
Absolutely critical. This is a huge one. Unstructured data is often loaded with sensitive PII, personally identifiable information. Think names, addresses, social security numbers, medical details buried in emails, video recordings, scanned documents, doctor's notes.
Right. All of the stuff regulations like GDPR and CCPA are focused on.
Exactly. And mishandling that kind of data, the fines can be massive, up to 20 million euros or 4% of your global annual revenue. Huge penalties. Plus, just finding specific sensitive data when you need it for an audit or a legal request within these vast, unorganized lakes of data, it's incredibly difficult.
Okay, so compliance is a major hurdle. What about just scaling the solutions? Keeping up with that crazy growth?
That's another big technical challenge. Any system you build needs to handle not just the petabytes you have now, but it needs to perform well as that volume keeps doubling every couple of years. Building architectures that can truly scale like that without performance degrading. It's a significant engineering lift.
And how does this new messy data play with the older systems companies already have?
Yeah, that's often a big friction point. More than half of enterprises still rely heavily on legacy tools, like those traditional SQL databases we mentioned. They just weren't designed to ingest, manage, or query unstructured formats effectively.
So the data gets stuck.
Exactly. It gets trapped in silos, it lives on email servers or in old document management systems, maybe in disconnected cloud buckets. It becomes inaccessible to the modern AI and machine learning tools that could actually process it and extract value.
And finally, you need the right people, the right skills, presumably.
Definitely. Processing unstructured data at scale demands specialized expertise. You need data scientists, AI, and machine learning engineers. The data engineering skills required are different and often needed at a much larger scale than for just structured data.
Mm.
And teams often find themselves juggling a whole bunch of different platforms. One source mentioned companies using 10 or more tools just to try and manage the whole life cycle of this data. It adds complexity, inefficiency, and you need people who understand all those different pieces.
Okay, wow, that's quite the list of challenges. Volume, variety, cost, quality, compliance, scale, legacy systems, skills. It's a lot. But here's where it gets exciting, right? The sources say technology is catching up. Where is the breakthrough coming from?
Yeah, this is the positive turn. The key seems to be a convergence of several things happening at once. Primarily, it's the rapid advances we're seeing in artificial intelligence.
Okay.
That, combined with much more scalable and flexible data storage options, especially in the cloud, and new ways of actually processing the data, it's creating a more systematic approach to tackle what used to feel like an intractable problem.
And there's a kind of framework described for this systematic approach, right? Collect, clean, extract, analyze.
Exactly. It's like a pipeline, a way to take that raw, messy, unstructured data and turn it into something actionable, into insights.
So walk us through that pipeline. First step, collect and organize.
Right. This is all about breaking down those silos we talked about, getting the data centralized. Often this means using scalable storage, designed for this kind of data, like cloud object storage or data lakes.
Okay.
It also means identifying all your sources. Where is this data actually coming from? Emails, call logs, sensors, social media feeds, and then, importantly, using metadata tags, labels to make the data findable later on. The key is actively avoiding creating new disconnected silos as you bring it together.
Got it. Get it all in one big searchable place. Then what? Clean and prepare.
Yep. Step 2 is turning that chaos into a format that the AI tools can actually work with. This involves removing the noise, getting rid of duplicate files or relevant content, maybe filtering out really low-quality images or audio recordings,
Okay.
and standardizing formats. So using things like OCR, optical character recognition, to pull text out of scanned PDFs or images, transcribing audio from calls or video files into text, maybe converting different file types into a common format, basically making the data AI ready.
Makes sense. Prep work before the real analysis. So next is extract meaning.
Exactly. And this is where the AI really starts to flex its muscles. For text data, you're using techniques like natural language processing, NLP.
Okay, NLP, what does that do?
It helps the AI understand the content, identify keywords, figure out the sentiment. Was that customer review positive, negative, or maybe neutral, or even sarcastic? Recognize the main topics being discussed, or pull out specific entities like names of people, organizations, locations mentioned in the text.
Okay, so understanding the text. What about images and video?
That's where computer vision, or CV, comes in. It lets the AI see and interpret visual data. Recognize objects, maybe identifying defective parts on a production line from camera feeds, detect patterns, track movement in security footage.
Got it. And audio.
For audio, it's often speech to text first to get a transcript, but also analyzing things like the speaker's tone of voice for emotional cues.
Interesting.
And a really crucial point here is that you need to align this extraction process with the specific business goals you defined right at the start.
Right, so you're not just extracting everything, you're focusing on pulling out the information that's actually relevant to solving your business problem.
Precisely. Otherwise, you just create more noise. And then finally, the last step, analyze and act.
Okay.
This is where you take all those extracted pieces of meaning and turn them into decisions. Maybe you build AI models to predict future trends based on patterns and customer feedback, or you cluster similar support tickets together to identify recurring problems. Or you visualize things like sentiment changes over time on dashboards for business users.
turning the extracted bits into usable intelligence.
Exactly, taking action based on the insights.
So what are the key technologies underpinning this whole pipeline? You mentioned AI, NLP, computer vision.
Those are definitely foundational for the extract meaning part.
Hmm.
NLP is crucial for really getting inside text-based data, understanding what customers think from reviews, spotting industry trends in news feeds, analyzing the nuances in legal contracts.
Right.
And computer vision lets you analyze images and videos at a scale and speed humans just can't match, spotting patterns you might otherwise miss.
Okay, and what about generative AI? That's everywhere now. How does it fit into this picture with unstructured data?
Yeah, generative AI is a massive piece, particularly in that analyze and act phase, but it also helps with extract. It goes beyond just identifying patterns. It can actually synthesize new information or content based on the unstructured data.
Synthesize, like what?
Think about it automatically summarizing really long, complex reports that were originally just pages of text,
Yeah.
or extracting key action items from the transcript of a long meeting, or powering those chatbots that can answer your questions by instantly finding the relevant info buried in huge manuals or knowledge bases.
Okay, that makes sense.
And one specific technique the source has mentioned, which is really important here, is called retrieval augmented generation, or AIRAG.
RAG. Okay, what's that?
It's a clever way to make generative AI models much more reliable and relevant when working with your specific company data. Basically, instead of just relying on its general training, the AI first retrieves relevant snippets of information from your trusted, unstructured data sources, your documents, your knowledge base, and then uses that retrieved information as context to generate its answer or summary.
Ah, so it grounds the AI's response in actual facts from your data, reducing the chances it just makes stuff up, the hallucination problem.
Exactly. It makes the generative AI much more accurate and useful for specific business tasks because it's drawing directly from your internal unstructured knowledge. That's a huge enabler.
Very cool. Okay, so AI models are key. What about the underlying infrastructure? Where do you put all this data?
Yeah, the data architecture is critical. Data lakes are really essential here. They're designed specifically to store massive volumes of raw data, including unstructured data, very cost-effectively and flexibly.
Flexibility seems key given the variety.
It absolutely is. The beauty of a data lake is you can load the data in its original format without having to force into a rigid structure up front.
Hmm.
You apply structure later when you actually analyze it.
Okay.
And we're seeing newer approaches emerge too, things like Lakehouse,
Mm.
or sometimes called Lake DB architectures. They try to combine the flexibility and scale of a data lake with some of the performance features and data management capabilities you'd find in a traditional data warehouse,
Best of both worlds.
kind of. And supporting these architectures are new open table formats. You might hear names like Apache Iceberg or Delta Lake. Sources highlight these are a big deal.
Why are they important?
They offer really significant performance improvements, sometimes 10x, even 100x faster queries on these huge data sets stored in data lakes. They do this by adding database-like features directly on top of the lake storage. Things like being able to track how data changes over time, or easily evolve the structure of your data without rewriting everything. It makes managing and querying massive, evolving unstructured data sets much more efficient.
Okay, so faster, more manageable access to the data. Makes sense.
Exactly. Now, while general AI models are powerful, the sources also really stress the value of domain-specific AI.
Meaning AI trained for a specific industry.
Precisely. Training AI models on datasets specific to healthcare or finance or legal or manufacturing makes them much, much more accurate for tasks within that domain. They learn the specific jargon, the context, the unique patterns of that field.
Right, like an AI trying to read a doctor's notes needs to understand medical terminology way better than a general chatbot.
Exactly. The accuracy gains can be huge. And importantly, you still often need data integration. You want to combine the insights you get from your unstructured data like customer sentiment from reviews with your structured data like their purchase history from your database.
To get that complete picture.
Yes, that holistic view is crucial. And finally, underpinning all of this, you absolutely need robust data quality and governance practices.
Can't forget governance.
Never. This means actively profiling your data to understand its quality. Using tools, maybe even AI-powered tools, to automate cleansing, removing duplicates, fixing errors, enriching the data by adding useful context, and, critically, implementing really strong security measures, strict access controls, encryption, solid authentication.
And you mentioned AI can even help with governance
Yeah,
tasks?
that's an interesting development. AI tools can now help automate things like identifying and redacting sensitive PII from documents or videos to help meet compliance requirements like GDPR. It helps manage the risk at scale.
Okay, so we've got the challenges, we've got the breakthrough technologies, and the systematic approach. What does this actually look like when companies put it all together? How are they turning this, data noise into actual gold?
Yeah, let's talk impact. The sources give some really compelling examples of how organizations are generating real business value, real ROI across different sectors.
Okay, let's start with healthcare. What's happening there?
In healthcare, they're using AI to analyze things like doctors' clinical notes, medical images, patient records, and it's dramatically speeding things up and improving care.
How so?
Well, one global network, for example, used these techniques and found they could identify eligible patients for clinical trials 90% faster than before.
90% faster. Wow.
Huge time saving. They also estimated about $50 million in annual savings just from improved diagnostic accuracy using AI on images and notes. And they saw a 300% faster research publication cycle because they could automate analyzing vast amounts of medical literature and trial data.
So, speeding up research, saving costs, potentially improving patient outcomes through faster diagnosis.
Mhm.
Pretty impactful. What about finance?
Financial institutions are digging into unstructured data like call center logs, email communications, legal contracts, news feeds about market sentiment, social media
All
discussions.
of that chatter.
Yeah, all that text. And they're using it to get better at risk management, detecting fraud patterns, and improving customer service. One investment firm reported seeing a 15% improvement in their portfolio performance
15%. How?
by leveraging insights gleaned from analyzing market news, sentiment, and reports much faster and more comprehensively. They also cut down the time their analysts spent on basic market research by 80%.
80% reduction in research time. That frees up analysts for higher value work.
Exactly. Mining that public opinion and news flow at scale.
Okay, finance makes sense. What about retail?
Retail is another prime area. Think about all the customer feedback they get. Product reviews, social media comments, support chat logs, emails, even what people type into the search bar on their website.
Right, tons of customer voice data.
And by mining all of that, using NLP and other AI, they get invaluable insights. A large retailer mentioned in the sources saw a 25% increase in customer satisfaction scores.
25%, that's significant.
Very. And they also managed a 40% reduction in daily operational issues reported by customers and saw a 15% increase in repeat purchases, all driven by systematically listening to and acting on that unstructured feedback loop.
Really closing the loop based on what customers are actually saying. Okay, one more manufacturing.
Manufacturing is seeing huge benefits too, especially around predictive maintenance. They're analyzing data from sensors on equipment, reading through maintenance logs and technician reports, even analyzing images from quality control cameras
What's the goal there?
to predict when a piece of machinery is likely to fail before it actually breaks down. One giant manufacturer reported a 60% reduction in unplanned downtime.
60%. That avoids incredibly costly production halts.
Absolutely. And for them, that translated into an estimated $100 million in annual savings.
Wow. Okay, these aren't small changes. These are major operational and financial impacts.
Exactly. These examples really show that unlocking unstructured data isn't just some interesting tech problem to solve. It's directly driving measurable business outcomes. It's what makes a lot of these powerful generative AI applications actually work well in practice. It boosts employee productivity significantly, saves time for end users.
Yeah, like you think about a good chatbot that's actually trained on all the company's help documents. It can answer your question in seconds instead of you waiting on hold for 15 minutes.
A perfect example.
Mm.
That saves user time and company resources. It's all about optimizing processes, using insights from data that was previously just sitting there unused.
Okay, so if you're listening to this and you're in an organization that you know is sitting on mountains of this unstructured data, how do you even begin to tap into it? What's the strategic approach here?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Mm.
The sources are clear. It absolutely requires attention. You can't just go out and buy a cool AI tool and expect magic to happen.
I need a plan.
You need a plan.
Hmm.
And it has to be a cross-functional effort. You need your data scientists, your IT infrastructure folks. But critically, and this comes up again and again, you need the domain experts involved, the people who actually understand the business context of the data.
Subject matter experts.
Exactly. And data engineering skills are absolutely fundamental here, probably even more so than with structured data, because of the scale and complexity involved.
Okay, so what are the practical steps organizations are actually taking? What does that roadmap look like?
It generally involves several key stages. First off, inventory. You have to figure out what unstructured data you actually have and where it all lives across the organization. Emails, shared drives, cloud storage, old systems, map it out.
Know what you're dealing with first. Makes sense.
Then number two, define clear goals. What specific business problem are you actually trying to solve by using this data? Is it improving customer service response times, reducing compliance risk, optimizing a specific manufacturing process? You need to tie your efforts to concrete objectives and figure out how you'll measure success your KPIs.
Got it. Start with the why, not just the what.
Absolutely. Third, build the right infrastructure. This means choosing your storage, often scalable cloud options like data lakes, selecting the right processing engines for the analysis, and implementing search capabilities. Increasingly, we're seeing things like vector databases being used here, especially for enabling AI-powered semantic search across unstructured content.
Okay, get the technical foundation solid.
Fourth step, select or train your AI models.
Yeah.
You need to decide if you can use pre-built, off-the-shelf AI models, or if you need to invest in training custom models, maybe domain-specific ones, to get the accuracy you need for your particular industry and use case.
Okay.
Then number five, build data pipelines. You need to automate the whole flow, getting the data from all those disparate sources, cleaning it up, preparing it, feeding it into your AI models for processing, and getting the results out.
Automate that journey from messy data to insight.
Exactly. Which leads to step six, integrate insights. This is crucial. Don't let the insights you generate get stuck in yet another silo, like just a report that sits on someone's desk. You need to get the results into the systems where the people who need them actually work. That might be dashboards or directly into your CRM system or feeding alerts into operational tools.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Insights are worthless if they're not easily accessible and usable by the people who can act on them.
Couldn't agree more. Step seven, and this should really be considered from day one, establish governance. Implement strong security protocols who can access what data, how is it encrypted, how are users authenticated, plan for privacy, how will you identify sensitive data like PII, and how will you manage it, maybe redact it where needed, and ensure you're meeting all the relevant compliance regulations for your industry and region.
Governance from the start, not as an afterthought.
Absolutely vital. And finally, step eight, build and empower the right team. Get that mix of data science skills, engineering talent, and I'll say it again because it's so important, involve those domain experts who truly understand the data's meaning, nuances, and business context.
Okay, that's a solid roadmap. Any key pieces of advice on avoiding common pitfalls? What trips companies up when they try to do this?
Yeah, the sources highlight several common traps. Big one, don't just start experimenting with cool technology without a clear business goal tied to value. You'll likely struggle to demonstrate ROI and get further investment.
Focus on the business problem first.
Yes. Another, don't underestimate the effort required for data readiness. Data quality is absolutely paramount, especially with unstructured data, and cleaning and prepping it often takes more time and resources than people expect.
Manage expectations on the prep work.
Right. Also, be mindful of the training needed for the AI, particularly if you're dealing with highly specialized or domain-specific language or data formats. And here it is again. Involve your domain experts from day one. Seriously, their input is invaluable for interpreting the data correctly and ensuring the AI solutions are actually relevant and useful. Don't try to do it just with technologists in isolation.
Got it. Domain experts are key.
Also, plan for governance and how the insights will actually be integrated and used right from the beginning. Don't build something amazing and then realize nobody can access or act on the results. Focus on delivering measurable value, not just implementing fancy tech. And maybe start with a smaller pilot project. Prove the value, measure the impact, learn from it, and then scale strategically based on that success. Don't try to boil the ocean on day one.
Start small, prove value, then scale. Good advice. So this journey is clearly still unfolding, evolving rapidly. What's next? What are some of the exciting trends we should be watching in this space?
Oh, the future here is incredibly dynamic. Several key trends really stand out in the sources. One is multimodal AI.
Multimodal, meaning?
AI that can understand and connect information across different types of data simultaneously. So
Yeah.
imagine an AI analyzing not just the text of a customer support chat, but also the screenshot the customer uploaded, showing the error message, and maybe even the tone of their voice if it was a call. It's about understanding the full context across text, image, audio, video all together.
Ah, okay. That allows for a much richer, deeper level of understanding.
Absolutely. We're also going to see generative AI for decision support get much more sophisticated. Think AI agents that can not only analyze complex unstructured data, but can then take predefined actions based on those insights or automatically draft communications or provide really tailored recommendations.
So moving beyond just providing the insight to actually helping automate the resulting action.
Exactly. Kind of like a co-pilot for certain tasks. And speaking of making it easier, the democratization of AI for unstructured data is a big trend. We're seeing more no-code and low-code platforms emerge.
So business users, not just data scientists, can build solutions.
That's the goal, allowing people closer to the business problems to leverage AI on this data themselves without needing deep coding skills. And real-time processing is becoming increasingly important too, getting insights immediately from streaming unstructured data, like social media feeds or IoT sensor data, allowing for much faster reactions and decision-making.
Faster insights means you can react more quickly to changing conditions. Makes sense.
We're also seeing a convergence with knowledge graphs and semantic search. This is about connecting the dots between different pieces of unstructured information, building relationships. This allows you to search and query based on the actual meaning and context, not just simple keywords, finding things that are conceptually related even if they don't use the exact same words.
More intelligent searching.
Yes. And as this data becomes more central and the AI more powerful, there's rightly a huge growing focus on stronger governance and ethical AI. Increasing demands for transparency in how these models work, explainability of their decisions, robust privacy protection, and clear regulations around the responsible use of AI, especially on potentially sensitive, unstructured data.
Making sure it's not just powerful, but also trustworthy, fair, and explainable.
Critically important. And finally, underpinning all this is a fundamental shift. Unstructured data is rapidly being viewed and treated as a core strategic asset. It's not just data anymore. It's becoming key intellectual property.
How so?
Companies are realizing that their unique historical unstructured data years of customer interactions, internal reports, operational logs is incredibly valuable for training future AI models specific to their business. It's becoming a source of durable competitive advantage. Think about leveraging all your past sales call transcripts to train a highly effective AI copilot specifically for your sales team.
Ah, using your history to build better future tools.
Exactly. Which leads directly to that trend of highly tailored, industry-specific AI co-pilots working alongside employees. These AI assistants will draw on deep analysis of relevant unstructured data in real time to provide tailored insights, suggestions, and support, essentially augmenting human expertise with powerful, data-driven understanding.
Fascinating. Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. We started by saying unstructured data is, well, most of the data organizations have.
Right, the dominant form, but for years, largely inaccessible, almost like that data graveyard.
But now, thanks to these big leaps in AI, particularly things like NLP, CV, and generative AI with RE,
And combined with new data management tech like data lakes and open table formats.
organizations finally have a systematic way to actually collect, process, and analyze this stuff at scale.
And in doing so, they're unlocking immense value that was previously just untapped.
Value that's translating directly into a competitive edge, much deeper customer understanding, and driving real innovation across basically every industry we looked at.
Yeah, the impact is clear. Now, managing it effectively, it's definitely not simple. It needs that strategic approach we talked about, the right tech, clear goals, strong governance.
And crucially, those cross-functional teams that absolutely must include the domain experts who understand the context.
Couldn't stress that enough.
Yeah.
But the good news is the strategies and the tools are evolving incredibly fast. It's opening up really exciting possibilities from that multimodal understanding to real-time insights and those AI co-pilots we just mentioned.
So the takeaway really seems to be that this breakthrough in handling unstructured data, it represents one of the most significant opportunities in business today.
Absolutely. The technology is increasingly capable. The business case, as we saw with those examples, is becoming crystal clear with proven ROI.
And that competitive advantage is really waiting for those organizations bold enough to actually seize this opportunity.
So the question really isn't whether unstructured data is going to transform your industry.
It's more like, will you be the one leading that transformation? Or will you be the one being disrupted by it? Something for you to think about.